Hello, BookTube. I'm going to be doing sort of an essay today, and I say sort of an essay because it's not particularly an essay. It's more a couple tiny articles, 3 of them to be precise. It's going to be from this edition of the Book Collector, which is Volume 1, Number 4, Winter 1952. I've got a couple of them here. I've only got these 2. This is the first issue. That is spring 1952. And I do have, I will be getting almost a complete run of these. I think it's barring just a few and a few other of these type of book journals, book magazines, but book collecting. But the Book Collector is quite good because it's got a lot of articles. But in this one, it's got 3 tiny little articles about penguin books. Well, they call it 3 short essays, so well, there you go. I'm going to call it essays. First one is by Edward Young, The Early Days of Penguins. And I think all 3 had something to do with Alan Lane and the creation of it. Especially Edward Young definitely did, according to his essay. He goes, the publication of the first batch of Penguin books in July 1935 was one of the big gambles in publishing history. A gamble on the existence of a far larger critical and appreciative public than the book trade was at that time prepared to believe in. Previous attempts at the same sort of thing had met with discouraging rebuffs, but Alan Lane was convinced that the time had come to tackle the whole problem of applying mass production to books from a fresh point of view. The thing to aim at, he felt, was the 6-penny book, something that could be bought as cheaply and as casually as a packet of cigarettes. What was the best possible kind of book that could be produced for 6pence? Was the question. It was time to get rid of the idea that the only people who wanted cheap editions belonged to a lower order of intelligence, and therefore cheap editions must have gaudy and sensational covers. The new 6-penny book should be something pretty smart, a product as clean and bright as a new pin, modern enough not to offend the sophisticated buyer, and yet straightforward and unpretentious. And in making what amounts to the first serious attempt to introduce brand goods to the book trade, Alan Lane had the wit to realize the cumulative publicity value of, first, a consistent and easily recognizable cover design, and secondly, a good trademark that would be easy to treat pictorially, easy to say, and easy to remember. I remember well the first conference on this, the most difficult point of all. It was held in a dark little office in Vigo Street, and there were about 5 of us sitting round a table with Alan's secretary typing away in her cubbyhole on the other side of the partition. We all fired off suggestions. We had before our minds the successful example of the great Continental series of paperbacks, the Albatross books, and it was agreed that we must find a bird or an animal for our mascot. We spent nearly 2 hours searching the bird and animal kingdoms until we had narrowed the possibilities down to a short list of about half a dozen. Yet somehow, none of these seemed right. We were in despair. Then suddenly the secretary's voice piped up from behind the partition. Her name, it should be recorded for posterity, was Joan Coles. She said, "What about penguins?" It was the obvious answer, a stroke of genius. The meeting broke up immediately. I went straight off to the zoo to spend the rest of the day drawing penguins in every pose from the dignified to the ridiculous, and the following morning produced at first shot the absurdly simple cover design which was soon to become such a familiar sight on the bookstalls. However, the immediate reception from the trade was not encouraging. The French might like paper-covered books, it was said, but the English had never liked them, and were not likely to now. The choice of titles was too highbrow to appeal to the public large enough to make the price of 6 pence economic, and it was lunacy to expect a wide popular sale with the plain typographical cover. For some weeks, the fate of the proposed new series trembled in the balance. Mr. Prescott, then the London buyer for Woolworths, saved the day with a substantial order which encouraged Alan Lane to go boldly ahead with production. The public liked the Penguins at once, and the book trade was proved to have been once more wrong. And as I say, there's two more here. This is Brooke Crutchley, entitled The Penguin Achievement. There can be little doubt that the Penguin Group of publications is the most important and influential British publishing venture of this century, for it has penetrated various economic and sociological barriers to bring new reading to hundreds of thousands of people. When Penguins appeared in 1935, they offered for the first time really cheap editions of recent works of considerable literary value, so cheap indeed that they were, and sometimes still are, a third of the price of hardcover reprint series such as Everyman, and about the 10th price of a new novel. Not quite anymore, but anyway. The standard of the material selected for Penguins proper has never been lowered, and the only change has been the addition of a number of subsidiary series. Before the war, the educational Penguins and the topical specials were launched, both using, as a rule, hitherto unpublished material, and they have been followed more recently by the King Penguins picture books, the classics and translations, various gay puffin books for children, scores, guides, dictionaries, periodicals, even prints. From this huge range, nearly 2,000 titles have been issued during the 17 years of the firm's existence, some of them in editions including reimpressions of over 500,000. This success is the result of good judgment displayed at many points, the picking out of authors and subjects, the launching of new series, the timing of innovations, and the publicity, the production. From the beginning, there has been a positive attitude to production. The cut of the type, evenness of press work, choice of color on covers and elsewhere, all these have been treated not just as incidental details, but as a vital factor in achieving the total result. Penguin books epitomize all the advance that has been made in the art and craft of printing in Britain from 1920 onwards, and not in Great Britain only, for the influence of Insel Verlag is manifest in the King Penguin series. This is not an age of the grand manner in printing, and consequently it will hardly rank in topographical history with some of the great eras of the past. For various reasons, there is no body of work produced today which can rank with the finest books of Jensen, Baskerville, Bodini, or William Morris. The keynote of our time is rational commercialization. The books we produce are well suited to the general buyer's needs and taste. We may claim to have kept a steady hand on the reins of technical progress. We produce better books, perhaps, than did our predecessors, but not great ones. Most of what is good in the book production of our time can be seen in Penguins, including their occasional use of that form of combined operation in the part of author and typographer, which produces such well-expressed pieces as The Englishman Builds or the Puffin printing. Actually, there may be more than two people involved in such projects. The point is that the matter and the manner of presentation are interdependent. This form of publication, reminiscent of exhibition display techniques, is perhaps our age's most original and worthwhile contribution to the business of communicating ideas through print. Nunes discovered that people could read. Alan Lane guessed that they could also think. Some new inspiration of the sort of consequent is needed before another such innovation can occur in publishing. And the third and last one in here is John Wesley, The Penguin Collector. Penguin books are already collected, but as far as I can discover, penguin collectors are mostly amateur, if they will forgive the expression, who either buy all penguins as they appear or will specialize in some particular series such as King Penguins or the classics. Penguin books, in other words, have not yet reached the more expensive shelves of the antiquarian bookshops, and by no means they soon will. When this happens, they will probably be collected for two reasons. First, and this is already happening occasionally, penguins which contain new material in whole or in part will be wanted as first editions in author collections. A case in point is the first Pelican book, Shaw's Intelligent Women's Guide, 1937, which was partially a reprint, but which contained a new and specially written section on fascism. This was the first occasion upon which Penguin Books published anything that but a plain reprint, but the publication of new material has been steadily increased. Until today, the surprising fact is that 2/3 of the Penguin output consists of new books. Secondly, penguins will be collected for themselves, quo penguins. It would be possible, although difficult, to amass today a complete collection of all Penguin books, first editions, in reasonable condition. But this will become increasingly hard to do, not least because the immense number of books to be found. 2,000 today, but who can say how many in 10 or 20 years' time? Well, while we may hope that a stalwart collector will someday attempt the whole group, a more manageable collection might include, shall we say, the first 100 penguins, the first 50 pelicans, a representative selection from each of the subsidiary series, not forgetting the foreign issues, and including examples of the firm's enhanced typography when John Tashold was appointed typographical advisor after the war, and the first editions of any other penguins that have sold more than 200,000 copies. Such a collection might not suit everybody, but let no one think that it would be easy to assemble. Certain titles would surely prove to be true. First editions of the earliest penguins and pelicans, puffin cutout books, and that have been cut out, and such odds and ends as the fake penguins that was manufactured during the war by the German propaganda department, and there's a footnote to that. The title appears to have been An Atlas of Post-War Problems, which was the name of the book actually published by Penguins, but I have been unable to find a copy and would appreciate help from any reader who has seen one. But he goes on to say there is also a number of condition, that original freshness, which should be so important to any book collector, but which must be of supreme interest to one who collects penguins. Few books are more attractive than the fresh new penguin. Few are less so than one that is worth and old, and worn and old. It may be that herein lies the tragedy of the penguin collector. How can he preserve the colorful gaiety of his collection without sealing it out of sight in dustproof, light-proof boxes, which I'm sure many have. Now, I've just read these this morning, and the funny thing was, when he says, the first 100 sort of penguins and the first 50 pelicans, I sort of thought, oh yeah, I'd like to have the first 50 penguins. I knew that I could never get them in first edition, or the likelihood was almost zero, but it'd be nice to even get some early reprints of those, just have the first 50 and the first 50 of Pelican. Well, I started with the Pelicans because they showed up in a bookshop, so I've got actually the first printing of the first two, which is the Intelligent Women's Guide to Social Capitalism, Sovietism, and Fascism by Bernard Shaw, and they have the dust jackets on as well. I've sort of expanded that a little bit. I'm trying to get sort of the first 100 Pelicans. I have most of them, varying shapes. Conditions. The condition is a bit rough on some. Not all have the dust jackets, but I'm going to show you the first 10 here. I'm missing number 9, but I think I'm missing about maybe 6 to 10 of 100. But yeah, this has the jacket. It's the first printing, and so is volume 2, and they're in pretty good shape. Dust jackets are a bit rough around the edges. Number 3 is the one that's missing the dust jacket. It is Last Men and First Men by Olaf Stapledon. It's done in a Pelican. Pages are a bit tanning. This is not a first. I don't think most of them are now, except the first one there. This is... Oh, actually, no, it probably is. It's first printing in 1930. This is the first Pelican in 1937. So it is a first. First penguin, that is. The number 4 is Digging Up the Past by Sir Leonard Woolley. And this is First Penguin, 1937. He first published in 1930. Again, it has the dust jacket, which leaves the book really quite bright, and the Pelican down at the bottom. And that's a nice jacket there. It's got a few minor things. I don't know if you can get really thin mylar for this kind of thing, because the thicker ones won't work too well. And then number 5 is H.G. Wells' Short History of the World. And yeah, now I'm looking at them. Yeah, these are all first Pelicans, not first printings, but first Pelicans. This has some writing in it. This is Practical Economics or Study and Economic Planning by G.D.H. Cole. David Murphy is probably familiar with this, and it was an original Pelican book, 1937. And again, it has the dust jacket, a little rough around the edges, but it's all there. And Essays in Popular Science by Julian Huxley. It's number 7. And yeah, it's another first. Yeah, so they are actually all the first 10 here are the first. That was that's 7. This is number 8. The Floating Republic, Dobry and Manwaring. The astounding story of the 1797 naval mutiny at the Nore and Spithead. And again, it's the first, 1937, first Pelican. It's a little darker on the spine, on the jacket. And I don't have number 9, which is Mary Webb's Gone to Earth. I don't have that one. The Mysterious Universe, Sir James Jeans. It's got a previous owner's name in it. And it's a reprint of... So I got 8 first Pelican printings. 2 of them are actually, 2 or 3 are actually first of it. 3 books. The 2, number 1 and 2, Shaw, and everything else. And this is the only reprint, but it still has a jacket on it, so that's quite nice. Now, the other Penguin things I have, there's a newer Alan Lane biography / history of the Alan Lane Publishing Company, which looks pretty good. This I showed on the shelf tour. It's Penguin by Design, so I thought I'd look at it a little more. It's got big French flaps. It's cover story 1935 to 2005. It doesn't give a name of who. Oh yeah, it does. Phil Baines. And here's a poster. Wherever you go, take a Penguin book. Which is kind of cool. So you got the Penguin up there, you got the Pelican, then you got the Puffin. This was published in 2005. I don't think there was a hardcover for this. But it just, it goes like, look at the design on the covers. The ones I've got, the earlier ones, don't have any pictures on them. And then you've got the early classics. And it goes through them all, basically. The cover designs, which is really cool. And the other one I have here that I showed is a newer one, the Penguin Classics book. And it's a bare hardcover. And it's published 2008, Henry Elliott. And it just goes through literally all the classics, and I think it shows every single cover, every permeation of it as well. It's actually quite good. I've enjoyed going through here and realizing stuff. Oh, I didn't know they did that. Oh, I've never seen that one before, and so forth and so forth. So even the plain ones had a nice design to them. The ones I remember were the smaller, sort of mass market size during the 80s, the classic Greek and Roman ones. And this is split up into area, sort of Fertile Crescent, ancient India, so the ancient world, then the Middle Ages, medieval Europe, medieval classical Asia, then early modern Europe, and then the Industrial Age. And it spreads, it breaks it up into periods. And it gives a little bio of the author as well, so it's actually quite good. If anybody's interested in Penguin Classics, I would say it's a really good quick reference. Like, that's all it is, just a quick reference. And it gives a little brief thing of each of them. So, and you may not, like, I wasn't aware of a lot of the publications, and a lot of the covers I have not seen. So it's very useful and just fun just to spend time with it. But yeah, no, I just thought I'd do something a little different for the essays. There might be another one or two in here, because like in this one it's collecting Sterne, so collecting Lawrence Sterne, signed manuscripts in my collection by a Sir Sidney Cockerell. Yeah, the Sir Sidney Cockerell, that's number 6. So there was a series of them. It's just a wonderful publication. So I'll end it there for the essay today and figure out what to do tomorrow. There's still some more Burrell, but maybe I'll go somewhere else like I did today. Anyway, take care. Have a good day.